I'm a 34-year-old single mother, and most of my life revolves around my 8-year-old daughter, Lily. We live in a small, quiet suburban neighborhood where school events are treated like local holidays. Every time there's a bake sale or art fair, parents show up like it's the Oscars. The lawns are trimmed, cupcakes come in boxes fancier than jewelry cases, and everyone wants their kid to stand out. I usually show up straight from a hospital shift, still in scrubs, trying to juggle exhaustion with enthusiasm. My sister Vanessa lives just 15 minutes away. She's married to Mark, who owns a chain of real estate offices. They have a daughter, Chloe, the same age as Lily. Our daughters have grown up side by side, though their worlds couldn't be more different. Vanessa doesn't work. Her full-time job is maintaining the image of the perfect family. Her Instagram feed is filled with matching outfits, designer bags, and captions about embracing motherhood with grace. Whenever Vanessa calls, it's rarely to ask how I'm doing. It's usually about some last-minute school emergency. She'll sound panicked because Chloe's costume for the class play ripped, or she forgot about a science project due the next morning. I always help. It's just what I do. I've stitched hems at midnight, printed posters, and even painted backdrops for her daughter's assignments while Lily sat beside me working on her own. The first real crack in the routine appeared during the school art fair. Each child displayed 2 paintings. I arrived early with Lily to help set hers up. When Vanessa came, she walked around with her camera, complimenting everyone loudly. I noticed her lingering near Lily's table. Later, when I passed by again, something felt off. The names on 2 paintings had been swapped. Chloe's name was now under Lily's bright watercolor landscape. I quietly asked Vanessa about it. She waved her manicured hand and laughed, saying Chloe had been feeling bad since losing the spelling bee. "It's just one small boost," she said, like it was no big deal. I wanted to believe it was harmless, but that night Lily came home confused. Her teacher had congratulated Chloe for her beautiful painting, and Lily didn't understand why her own work didn't have her name anymore. After that, small things started adding up. Vanessa would borrow Lily's handmade costume just for reference, then send Chloe to school wearing it. At the next event, Chloe's project looked suspiciously like Lily's old science model. Each time, Vanessa brushed it off with a laugh or compliment about how creative Lily was, almost as if that excused everything. I tried staying out of it. I told myself it wasn't worth a fight. But every time it happened, I saw Lily's excitement dim a little more. She started asking if her projects were good enough, if maybe she should stop showing them to her aunt. The final straw came during a small family talent show at our parents' house. Lily played piano, a piece she'd practiced for weeks. Vanessa recorded it on her phone. The next morning, I scrolled through my feed and froze. Vanessa had uploaded the video, captioned "So proud of Chloe's talent." Parents from school commented about how gifted Chloe was. When I showed Lily, she stared at the screen for a long time before asking why everyone thought Chloe could play like that. Then she said, "Maybe I should stop trying so hard if it doesn't matter." That night, I couldn't let it slide anymore. I realized what was happening wasn't just unfair, it was teaching my daughter the wrong lesson about honesty and effort. A week later, the school sent out flyers for the upcoming Parent Night, a showcase celebrating each student's achievements. As I read the notice, an idea formed in my mind, not to argue, not to accuse, but to let the truth show itself in the plainest way possible. I decided Parent Night would be the night everything quietly came to light. Parent Night came faster than I expected. The entire school buzzed with excitement, hallways covered in posters and strings of paper stars. Every classroom was transformed into a gallery of the students' yearly projects. Parents arrived dressed like they were attending a charity gala instead of a school event. Teachers stood proudly by their students' displays, and tables were stacked with homemade treats. Earlier that afternoon, Vanessa called me. She started by asking about parking and timings, but her tone shifted quickly. She kept circling back to Lily's project, asking about the theme, the layout, the colors. I kept my answers short, telling her Lily worked hard, and the project would speak for itself. There was no reason to feed her curiosity this time. When Lily and I arrived, the classrooms were already buzzing. Her rainforest diorama was placed in the center of her class display, surrounded by bright paper leaves and a handwritten label with her name. I double-checked everything twice before stepping back. I even asked the teacher if the kids were still making last-minute adjustments. She smiled and said everything was final. We went home to get ready, and I let Lily wear her favorite blue dress, the one with the tiny embroidered flowers. She said it made her feel like sunshine. We reached the event early. I wanted Lily to enjoy her moment without any surprises. 15 minutes later, Vanessa swept in with Mark and Chloe. She was wearing a cream blazer and heels far too high for a school hallway. Chloe followed, holding a tray of cupcakes with pink frosting, each topped with a printed sticker that read Chloe's Kitchen. Vanessa immediately made her way to the teachers, handing out cupcakes like a campaign candidate. Within minutes, she was surrounded by parents, introducing Chloe to everyone as her little artist and performer. I noticed her pointing toward the rainforest display, and a familiar unease settled in. She was doing it again. I could hear her voice, light and confident, explaining how Chloe had stayed up late finishing the trees and painting the miniature animals. I didn't interrupt. I stood across the room with Lily, pretending to look at another project. A few teachers stopped by, smiling and complimenting Chloe's creativity. One even told Vanessa that the detail in the model was impressive. Lily's small hands tightened around mine, and she glanced up at me with wide, unsure eyes. Vanessa kept performing, talking about how she taught Chloe patience through art, how motherhood meant guiding your child to greatness. It was like watching a play she'd rehearsed 100 times. I could see parents nodding, some even asking her for tips. Lily whispered that it was her project. Her voice was so quiet, it barely carried over the chatter. I knelt down beside her and told her to stay close. I checked the name tag again. Sure enough, it now read Chloe M. in Vanessa's tidy handwriting. The original tag was gone. I didn't react. Instead, I waited. Crowds shifted around us as people moved toward the art displays. The principal made her rounds, complimenting parents and students. Vanessa took that chance to shine even more. When another mother asked how she balanced volunteering with Chloe's studies, Vanessa smiled like she'd practiced it in a mirror and said she sacrificed sleep for perfection. Lily looked up at me again, clutching my arm. I told her to stand tall and keep her chin up. I could see how much this mattered to her, how she just wanted someone to notice her name missing. I took a deep breath and stepped back, letting the moment unfold. It wasn't the time to argue or accuse. There were too many people, too many eyes. Anything I said in that moment would turn into another story Vanessa could twist. I wanted the truth to come out on its own. A teacher stopped by again, admiring the diorama. She pointed to the background where Lily had carefully written small notes identifying each animal. The handwriting matched every one of Lily's assignments on the classroom wall. I could see realization flicker in the teacher's face, though she didn't say anything yet. Vanessa noticed too. Her smile faltered just slightly, the first visible crack in her confidence. She looked over at me from across the room, then quickly back at the teacher. I stayed where I was, steady, quiet, calm. Parents began gathering near that display, murmuring about how detailed it was. Vanessa started speaking faster, telling them about Chloe's love for the rainforest and how she inspired the project after watching a documentary. It sounded rehearsed, almost too polished. I guided Lily closer, our steps slow, deliberate. I didn't need to make a scene. All I needed to do was stand beside what was rightfully hers. Lily stood in front of the table, her small frame almost hidden between taller adults. Her eyes followed her own work, the one she'd spent 2 weeks creating at our kitchen table. I could tell she recognized every cutout, every painted leaf. Vanessa kept talking, but her words grew shaky when the teacher asked a few casual questions about the process. The answer didn't match the details. The teacher's brow furrowed. The crowd grew quieter, sensing something off. Lily's name wasn't anywhere, yet her handwriting and the familiar color choices spoke for themselves. Vanessa's expression stiffened. I didn't need to say a word. I placed my hand gently on Lily's shoulder and told her it was okay. We didn't need to fight. The truth had already started to reveal itself. That was the moment I decided not to let this pattern repeat again. Not through confrontation, but through clarity. I knew what to do next. How to let every parent, every teacher, every person in that room see the truth for what it was, without me raising my voice once. Parent night wasn't over yet, and for the first time, I knew the truth would speak louder than Vanessa ever could. The crowd around the rainforest display grew thicker. Parents leaned closer to take pictures, while the teacher stood nearby, smiling at Vanessa and complimenting Chloe's detailed work. That was the moment I stepped forward. I told the teacher there might be a small mistake with the label. My voice wasn't raised. I just wanted the truth to be clear. Vanessa froze. Her perfect smile didn't move, but her eyes darted toward me. I gestured gently to the diorama and explained that Lily had spent 2 full weeks building it at our kitchen table. Every cutout, every stroke of paint, even the little handwritten labels on the trees. The teacher blinked, then leaned in to examine the handwriting. Right beside her, on the classroom wall, were pinned examples of each child's assignments. Lily's name and handwriting matched exactly. The shift in the air was instant. Parents nearby grew quiet. The teacher turned toward Vanessa, confused, and asked when Chloe had brought her project in. Vanessa laughed softly, a sound that didn't reach her eyes, and said it must have been a mix-up. She explained that she helped organize the displays earlier and must have put the wrong tag by accident. Before anyone could respond, Lily spoke. She said clearly that she had carried her project to school that morning by herself, and no one had touched it. Her voice was steady, not loud, but it carried across the room. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut through the noise of the crowd. Teachers exchanged uncertain glances. Vanessa's hand tightened around Chloe's shoulder. Chloe looked pale, eyes wide. When the teacher asked gently if she had made the project, Chloe hesitated. Her lower lip trembled. She looked up at her mother, then back at the teacher, and finally said that her mother told her to say it was hers, but she didn't want to lie anymore. The room went completely silent. Even the background chatter from the hallway faded. Vanessa's expression collapsed. She tried to laugh it off again, saying Chloe was confused, but no one seemed to believe her. The teacher straightened and removed the label from the table. She handed it to me and replaced it with Lily's name. I thanked her quietly for checking, and told her the only thing that mattered was every child being recognized for their own effort. That simple sentence broke the tension. Several parents nodded, murmuring in agreement. One of the teachers praised Lily's work, saying how proud she should be. Vanessa didn't stay long after that. Her cheeks were flushed red as she grabbed her purse and told Mark they were leaving. Chloe followed, still clutching her mother's sleeve. Vanessa avoided every eye in the room as she walked toward the door. The only sound after she left was the shuffle of parents whispering to each other. I didn't chase her or try to explain. There was nothing left to explain. The truth had spoken for itself, in front of everyone. Lily stood a little taller beside me, her small hand gripping mine. The rest of the evening moved slowly. Teachers continued complimenting the students, and parents lingered at the snack tables, though the earlier excitement had softened into something quieter. A few came up to me privately, telling me they admired how calmly I handled everything. I just nodded. I didn't want to turn it into gossip. By the time the event ended, most of the displays had been packed away. Lily helped her teacher gather leftover art supplies, humming under her breath. I waited by the door, watching her tuck her project safely back into its box. For the first time all evening, she smiled without hesitation. When we got home, there was a message waiting on my phone. Vanessa had sent it less than an hour after she left. It was long and furious, accusing me of humiliating her in front of the community, saying I'd ruined her reputation and turned people against her. She ended it with a line about how families should protect each other. I read the message once and set the phone face down on the counter. There was nothing to reply. The next morning, Lily was up early, ready for school before I'd even poured my coffee. She carefully carried her project box to the car, holding it like treasure. When we arrived, her teacher greeted her at the door and congratulated her for the hard work she'd done. The other kids gathered around, admiring her diorama. For the first time in weeks, Lily's shoulders weren't slumped. She laughed with her classmates, pointing out the tiny paper toucan she'd glued on top of a tree. Her teacher asked if she could keep it for a few days to display it properly with Lily's name. When Lily turned back to wave at me before going inside, her smile was full and proud. There was no confusion, no doubt, just the kind of quiet pride every parent hopes to see in their child. As I drove away, I thought about everything that had led up to that moment. No arguments, no shouting, just simple truth, standing on its own. That was the only thing that had ever needed to happen. From that day forward, I decided that was the boundary. The truth wouldn't just stay silent anymore. For almost 2 weeks after parent night, there was silence. No messages from Vanessa, no pictures of Chloe's activities flooding the family chat. It was strange to see it quiet after years of constant updates, birthday collages, volunteer badges, endless photos captioned with words like proud mom moments. One afternoon, my mother called. Her tone was uneasy, careful, the way she always sounded when she didn't want to pick a side. She said Vanessa had told her I embarrassed her in front of the school and that people were talking. I explained exactly what happened, how Vanessa had switched the labels again, how the truth came out on its own, and how I hadn't raised my voice or caused a scene. My mother sighed, the kind of sigh that usually came before saying, I just want everyone to move past this. It wasn't new. My mother had been saying some version of that since we were kids. Whenever Vanessa caused trouble, the goal was always peace, not accountability. I listened quietly, realizing that this pattern was exactly how things had kept getting worse. At school, things slowly shifted back to normal. Lily's teacher introduced a new rule. Every project had to be submitted and labeled by the student, not the parents. It wasn't mentioned directly, but everyone understood why. Lily started volunteering to show her work more often. She even signed up to lead her class presentation the next week. A few parents who had been there during parent night stopped me in the parking lot or after drop-off. They thanked me for staying calm and told me it was good. Someone had spoken up without turning it into drama. I didn't dwell on it, but their words lingered. Vanessa didn't show up at the next 2 school events. Her husband, Mark, came instead. He looked uncomfortable, keeping to himself while Chloe stayed close to Lily during activities. Chloe had become much quieter, barely speaking in groups. She didn't run around like she used to, and when other kids complimented Lily's work, she only smiled politely. I noticed but didn't step in. Lily was healing, and that was my focus. I couldn't fix how Vanessa raised her daughter. A week later, my mother announced she wanted to host a peace dinner. She said it would be a chance for everyone to clear the air. I tried to decline, but she insisted, saying the family needed to reconnect. Lily wanted to see her cousins, so I agreed. The dinner was at my parents' house. Vanessa arrived in a fitted dress, carrying a dessert tray like it was armor. She greeted me without looking me in the eye and immediately busied herself setting the table. My mother hovered, trying to keep the mood cheerful, but the air was heavy with tension. Dinner started quietly. The sound of silverware was louder than the conversation. Vanessa made small talk about Chloe's new extracurriculars, but avoided any mention of the school. At one point, she commented about how some people like performing honesty for attention. My father shot her a warning look, but she just smiled faintly. I didn't respond. Halfway through dinner, Lily, sitting beside me, turned to her aunt and asked why she told everyone Chloe made her rainforest project. The question dropped like a stone in water. Everyone froze. My mother set down her fork, and even Vanessa's husband stopped chewing. Vanessa's smile didn't move for a few seconds. Then she said she only did it to protect Chloe's feelings, that Chloe had been struggling with confidence and needed encouragement. She framed it as a misunderstanding, the same way she always did. I looked at her and said evenly that protecting a child means teaching them to stand on their own, not teaching them to take what isn't theirs. The words were calm, but they hung in the air with weight. Vanessa's face tightened, and she pushed her chair back abruptly. She muttered something about being done with this and walked away from the table. The silence that followed was long. My mother reached for her glass, her hand shaking slightly. Mark apologized under his breath and went after Vanessa. Lily sat quietly, unsure what to do. I told her to finish her meal and helped her scoop another spoonful of potatoes, as if everything were normal. When the night ended, the table still looked untouched on Vanessa's side. My mother stood at the door, apologizing softly, saying she hadn't expected things to get emotional. I told her it was fine, though everyone knew it wasn't. On the drive home, Lily hummed along to the radio, clutching her small toy in the back seat. The evening had ended in tension, but for the first time, she hadn't been confused about who was in the wrong. That night, I got another message from Vanessa. It was short, just a line about how she was done trying with me. I didn't reply. By then I had learned silence said more than any argument ever could. In the days that followed, life kept moving. School, work, and weekend routines filled the space where family drama used to be. Vanessa stayed quiet. The group chat remained empty. But for once, the silence didn't feel like avoidance. It felt like something new was finally taking shape. A few days after the dinner, I got a message from Mark. It was short but genuine. He thanked me for staying calm that night and apologized for how tense things had become. He said Vanessa was struggling with embarrassment, but also that Chloe had been unusually quiet since everything happened. He mentioned that Chloe often asked to visit Lily because she felt calmer around her. I thought about it for a while before agreeing. Whatever was happening between the adults, the kids didn't deserve to be caught in it. When Chloe came over that weekend, she ran straight into the house, holding a small drawing she'd made for Lily. The two hugged like nothing had ever gone wrong. Within minutes, they were sprawled across the living room floor, surrounded by markers and craft paper. At one point, Chloe looked at Lily and said she was sorry for taking credit for her project. She didn't sound nervous, just honest. Lily shrugged, told her it was okay, and asked if she wanted to build something new together. They spent the next hour creating paper animals and gluing them onto cardboard trees. I watched them from the kitchen, noticing how relaxed Chloe seemed. She laughed freely, no pressure, no comparisons. She wasn't trying to outshine Lily or copy her. She just enjoyed being there. Later, when they moved to the dining table to paint, Chloe started talking about school in bits and pieces. She mentioned how her mother always wanted her to redo whatever Lily did. Projects, hairstyles, even outfits. She said it wasn't really about liking the same things. It was about not falling behind. Her words came out lightly, but they carried weight. She talked about how her mother would take photos of her work, adjust it, or even replace it before showing it to teachers. Listening quietly, I started realizing how much pressure Vanessa had put on her own daughter. Every copied hairstyle, every mirrored project, none of it was about Chloe. It was about control. When Mark came to pick her up, Chloe hugged Lily tightly and asked if she could come again next week. Mark nodded quickly and thanked me again. His voice was tired but sincere. He said he and Vanessa had argued about the school incident, and though things at home were tense, he wanted to focus on helping Chloe find confidence in her own work. I told him the girls were always welcome to play, but made it clear that I wasn't getting involved in their marriage or Vanessa's choices. Later that week, the school sent out a notice about a new rule. Student projects would now be submitted directly by the children themselves, without parent involvement. It wasn't mentioned why, but everyone understood the reason. It was the school's quiet way of preventing the same situation from happening again. Word around the neighborhood also started shifting. I heard from another parent that Vanessa had been asked to step back from the parent volunteer committee. No one said it outright, but people were talking. Her absence at school meetings was noticed, and for once, it wasn't followed by explanations or posts about focusing on family. Meanwhile, Lily's energy came back stronger than ever. She joined the school's art club and spent evenings sketching new ideas for their next display. At the end of the month, she received a small award for creativity. It wasn't a big ceremony, just a few kids called to the front during assembly, but the smile on her face was brighter than anything I'd seen in months. She didn't need anyone to tell her she'd done well. She already knew. Vanessa didn't show up for that event. She didn't message or call either. Chloe, however, sent a small note congratulating Lily, written in careful, uneven handwriting. It said she hoped they could paint together again soon. Around that same time, I started noticing a change in how people around town interacted with Vanessa. The polite smiles were still there, but the eager attention was gone. She still posted photos online, but they didn't get the same comments or enthusiasm they used to. Her attempts to organize neighborhood events went unanswered. It wasn't cruelty, it was distance. At home, life began to feel balanced again. Lily filled the house with drawings taped to the walls and tiny crafts drying near the window. She talked about new projects, new ideas, and how she wanted to teach Chloe how to make her own models from scratch. The silence from Vanessa's end wasn't peaceful, it was avoidance. But in that quiet, something had shifted. People saw her differently now. The story she'd built for so long about being the perfect mother had cracks that couldn't be covered anymore. One afternoon, as I packed Lily's art supplies for school, I realized that without saying a word, the truth had changed everything. Vanessa's absence, the new school rule, the subtle way people now spoke about her, it all pointed to the same thing. The lie that once stood tall had finally lost its audience. For the first time, things didn't feel like a fight to keep balance. They simply were what they should have been all along. Honest, quiet, and real. By spring, things around the neighborhood felt calmer. The school had started preparing for its annual spring exhibition, a big event where every student displayed something creative they'd worked on throughout the semester. Parents were invited to participate by helping with setup, decorations, or supplies. Lily was thrilled. She wanted to make a marine ecosystem model with recycled materials. At the first volunteer meeting, I noticed Vanessa's name listed again on the committee roster. It surprised me, though not completely. If there was an event involving parents, she wouldn't stay away for long. When I arrived at school to help sort the tables and displays, she was already there, arranging flowers on a stage banner. She greeted everyone politely, avoiding eye contact with me. Her usual energy was still there, but it was toned down, less commanding, more careful. The teachers gave clear instructions about everyone's roles. I helped with labeling sections and carrying supplies while Vanessa stuck to small decorative tasks. She didn't try to take over like before. It was strange, almost deliberate, like she was making sure not to repeat the past. Over the next few weeks, Lily worked hard on her project. Our living room turned into a workshop full of cardboard coral reefs and tiny painted sea creatures. Chloe joined her a few times, quieter now but focused. The two worked side by side, helping each other without any tension. On the morning of the exhibition, the school gym was filled with tables lined up in neat rows, each covered with colorful displays. Parents drifted around, taking pictures and chatting. Vanessa arrived later, dressed simply and carrying a box of cookies for the refreshment table. It was the first time I'd seen her arrive at an event without trying to make an entrance. When the students began presenting, Lily's turn came. She stood proudly beside her marine ecosystem, explaining how coral reefs protect ocean life and how she built her model with recycled plastic. Parents gathered around, impressed by her creativity. The teacher commended her for her effort and detailed explanation. Right beside her, Chloe presented a smaller but thoughtful project about teamwork, using drawings and a short story she'd written herself. It wasn't polished or flashy, but it was sincere. The teacher praised her for originality. Vanessa stood near the back of the group, quiet but smiling. When the event ended, Vanessa approached me. For a moment, it looked like she was searching for words. She finally said she had gone too far before and that she was trying to do better. Her tone wasn't defensive, just plain and tired. I didn't give her a long answer. I just told her I hoped everyone learned something from all of it. She nodded and stepped back to help the teachers collect leftover decorations. Later that day, when other parents came over to compliment Lily's project, Vanessa surprised me. Instead of taking over the conversation, she simply added, "She's very talented. She worked really hard on it." The words were small but real. There was no performance behind them, no hidden meaning. Over the following weeks, Lily and Chloe started spending more time together again. They would draw, play music, or bake small treats in our kitchen. Their laughter filled the house like it used to before everything went wrong. There were no comparisons or competitions anymore, just cousins being kids. At school, things slowly found balance. Vanessa volunteered occasionally but stayed in the background, handling small duties like organizing materials or setting up tables. She didn't try to lead or control, and no one treated her like she needed to. The community that once whispered about her began including her again, though differently. Parents still talked to her, but it was measured, friendly but not fawning. She didn't seem to chase their approval anymore. Sometimes she just showed up, helped quietly, and left. It wasn't redemption, it was adjustment. Mark still dropped off Chloe most mornings. Once in a while, he'd thank me for letting the girls play together, saying it made things easier at home. He never mentioned Vanessa beyond that, but I could tell he was trying to rebuild normalcy in his own way. By the time summer approached, Lily was back to her confident self. She won a small art contest for her ocean-themed project and was invited to help with a school mural. The school even asked if Chloe wanted to assist, and she agreed. Watching them work side by side on the mural wall, I noticed how different it looked now. No rivalry, no copying, just two kids learning from each other. Vanessa showed up one afternoon with snacks for the volunteers. She didn't interrupt or take photos. She simply handed out water bottles and clapped for the kids when they finished. When the teacher thanked her, she smiled politely and stayed until cleanup. There was no scene, no need for one. After the mural unveiling, the school principal gave both Lily and Chloe small certificates for teamwork. Parents applauded. Vanessa clapped too. Genuinely, not the exaggerated kind she used to give. It wasn't about her anymore, and maybe that was the biggest change of all. That evening, as we packed up the leftover art supplies, Lily said she wanted to frame one of her drawings to give to Chloe. She wrote for my cousin, who makes everything fun at the bottom. I watched as she wrapped it carefully in colored paper and set it by the door for the next day. Things weren't perfect, and they didn't need to be. Vanessa didn't apologize to everyone she'd wronged or suddenly become a new person, but she had changed enough that the cycle stopped repeating. Sometimes peace doesn't arrive with apologies. It arrives when the noise finally quiets and everyone learns where they stand. For the first time in years, our family found that quiet, and this time, it stayed. Several months after the spring exhibition, life slipped into a steady rhythm. Lily and Chloe started attending a weekend art workshop at the community center. Every Saturday morning, I dropped them off with sketchbooks in hand and paint smudges already on their sleeves. They'd sit side by side, comparing colors, trading supplies, and helping each other without any hint of rivalry. Their teacher often mentioned how naturally they collaborated. One focused on details while the other added brightness and energy. Vanessa and I spoke occasionally, mostly about the girls or school schedules. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't cold either. We kept things polite and practical, messages about pickup times, supply lists, or upcoming events. For the first time, our conversations didn't circle around appearances or subtle competition. They were short, neutral, and calm. At school, Vanessa had taken on smaller volunteer roles again. She no longer tried to lead committees or plan every event. Instead, she handled quiet tasks, setting up chairs, labeling tables, or passing out materials during assemblies. Teachers seemed to appreciate her effort without hesitation this time. It was clear she'd learned how to stay involved without taking over. Mark stayed consistent too. He often helped at drop-offs and occasionally stopped by the workshops. One day while waiting outside, he mentioned that things at home had improved. Vanessa, he said, was finally focusing on smaller, meaningful things instead of public perfection. He admitted that her past behavior had caused tension between them, but the calm that had returned to their family was noticeable. A few weeks later, the school announced a community charity fair. Students and parents would host small booths to raise money for local shelters. Lily and Chloe were eager to participate. They wanted to run a craft booth where they'd sell handmade bookmarks, painted stones, and bracelets. I offered to handle materials, paint, brushes, and ribbons, while Vanessa volunteered to take care of decorations. It was the first time we were working side by side on something again, and surprisingly, there was no tension. We discussed logistics through short, polite texts. Everything stayed simple and civil. While planning, Vanessa suggested having the girls wear matching shirts with the booth's name on them. For a moment, it felt like the old pattern might return, but I just smiled and said individuality would make their work stand out more. She paused, then nodded and agreed. It was a small moment, but it showed more restraint than I'd seen from her in years. When the day of the fair arrived, the schoolyard filled with laughter, music, and colorful tents. Lily and Chloe's booth quickly became one of the busiest. Their table overflowed with handmade crafts, each one unique. Parents stopped to compliment the creativity and teamwork between them. The girls took turns explaining how they'd made everything, passing out bracelets and counting their earnings. Teachers stopped by to comment on how well they worked together. One said the cousins balanced each other perfectly, Lily's steady focus with Chloe's cheerful charm. I stood nearby, quietly organizing supplies, watching them beam under the praise. As the fair began to wind down, Vanessa came over to help the girls pack up their booth. When we were alone for a moment, she turned to me. Her tone was hesitant but genuine. She said that seeing the girls today made her realize how much harm constant comparison had caused. She didn't excuse it, and she didn't over-explain. It was just a simple acknowledgement. I told her we couldn't change the past but could make sure the girls never repeated our mistakes. She nodded, looking at Lily and Chloe laughing nearby, and didn't say anything more. It was quiet, but it felt like something important had finally settled. Our mother was helping clean up the nearby tables and overheard part of the exchange. Later, she told me that the tone between us sounded different, less like truce, more like understanding. It was the first time she'd seen both of us working together without hidden tension. When the school year came to an end, the award ceremony was held in the gym. Lily received recognition for creativity and teamwork. Vanessa clapped loudly from her seat, smiling at her niece with genuine pride. It wasn't the forced applause I used to recognize, it was real. Then came Chloe's name. She received an award for empathy and kindness. When she walked across the stage, Vanessa's expression softened in a way I hadn't seen before. It wasn't pride for being the best, it was pride for being herself. After the ceremony, both girls ran to show each other their certificates. They compared ribbons and laughed about how they'd hang them on the same wall at home. I stood beside Vanessa as we watched them. There was no awkwardness, no need to fill the silence. That evening, while driving home, Lily sat in the back seat talking nonstop about future projects she wanted to do with Chloe. Painting workshops, summer fairs, maybe even a small art stand at the park. The sky outside glowed orange as the car filled with her excited chatter. I glanced at her in the mirror, then at the road ahead. The months of tension, rivalry, and chaos had finally faded into something ordinary and peaceful. The journey hadn't been about revenge or proving a point. It had been about truth slowly setting things right. Watching the girls grow confident in their own ways, I realized peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the quiet strength that comes when honesty and consistency finally take root, and no one feels the need to compete anymore.